you've got to want every day not to be the same. But I think that's essentially what it offers you.
Alex, tell us how you came to get involved in aviation.
It was completely by accident. I never meant to. I did an English degree. I put off work for as long as I could. And when I decided to get a job, it was going to be in publishing. I graduated during a very deep recession. And while I was at home, I'd read a book about helicopter pilots in Vietnam and thought I decided I wanted to do that. Funny enough, there weren't any opportunities. So long story short, I got a job at the local airport at Oxford, worked at the ops desk for 2 years, built my license up on a monthly basis, got subsidized flying, took 2 years to get my 40 hours, and then looked at hours billed by joining a taxi company. I was the only employee, I was in the operations department, and I got some free flying out of that. But gradually, as I got more involved in the business side of it, I grew away from flying and eventually let my license lapse, and just continued ever since then. But yeah, very haphazard. There's very conscious that there haven't been clear career pathways, and I think that's what we're looking to identify now. And in fact, most of my peers, most people I know, would have a similar story. Maybe more people became commercial pilots and then got into the business side from there. But I don't think many people woke up and decided to want to be in business aviation.
No, I don't think I've met anyone actually who has, unless it's in the family. I think most people I know who are enjoying quite fun careers, I would say today, have come into aviation by many different routes. I guess the point I'm asking, really why I'm asking this, is you had an English degree. I had an English degree. Really, I think what you've also got there is a set of skills that are not necessarily what you've trained to have, but you were able to adapt and be flexible and learn how to be. In fact, before we move on to what kind of skills you've got, could you give us an overview of, I'm not even going to say a typical day, maybe a week that would be quite exciting, because I know lots of your weeks are quite exciting.
Yeah, I mean, it's particularly at the moment, it's like living a month in a week. So just this morning, I've been into a high school as enterprise advisor. I've come back, we're doing a showcase with clients of a citation jet we're operating with partnership with another collaborative partner. Later on, we're talking again about new business plans for next year, and then there's an awards dinner this evening. So pretty much start to finish, every day is blocked out now. Next week, we're going to pick up or do the acceptance on a brand new helicopter we're buying. And then there's the normal business administration issues which permeate that, and the great dark secret we all have to admit, we then have to juggle our emails around that, which is really what we all do. Gaps between emails.
Well, that all sounds like, I mean, there's several exciting events within one day. You know, tell me about going into the school.
Really interesting. So that is it's an enterprise advisor where they want a mentor effectively from business to go in and talk with the careers office about how they are providing careers guidance that's meaningful and practical. It's not aviation, it's just as an employer. And it's fascinating because we are also, related to this call, looking to develop clear signposted aviation pathways. They have to be connected to the schools. So I didn't get into it for that reason, I was asked, but it just seems to be all colliding the same way. And what's particularly interesting is there's this gap between willing businesses who would do more but don't know how to, and schools who are utterly gridlocked with their own procedures and can't interact with them. Trying to step into that void is something really looking at the moment.
And I think that's really important, because without exposure to being on an airfield and being around an airport, I think it's quite difficult for a lot of people to imagine what kind of roles there could possibly be that aren't pilots. You trained as a helicopter pilot. I got as far as having a private pilot's license, but actually that's had nothing other than having a more in-depth understanding of how aeroplanes and aircraft work for me, it's not really been anything to do with the kind of work that I actually do. And so I think that's one of the things that I know we want to get across to young people, is that you don't have to be a pilot to work in aviation and have a great career.
I think that's so true. It's something. I think the what do they call it? The cartoon uniform jobs are the ones that everyone is taught to want to be, and they are actually a very, very small part of it. Pilot who was with our operation hadn't been involved in an AOC said to us at some point, he said, I didn't realize it takes a small village to get a flight airborne. And that really sets it up. It's the tip of the diamond at the front of the aircraft, the trail behind of the organization. And that's what creates so many opportunities. And it's so there are two elements really I'm more and more aware of. Is there are the structured career pathways. I want to be a dispatcher, I want to be a marshaller, I want to be a pilot. But then, because it only really came to really recent, is I want to be in aviation. And that's actually what happened to me. I didn't become a helicopter pilot. I needed to get the PPL to become a helicopter pilot, and got distracted way before that ever lost me a lot more money. But I think the initial period of 2 years in a very busy Oxford Air Training School at the time was training BA pilots from all around the world, commercial pilots. I saw self-improvers, I saw the successful ones, the failures. We did the customs clearance, so I met so many interesting, diverse people coming in. It was just breadth of life that aviation covers. And I think that then was a context for everything you do going forward. And if you look at it's a global industry. We have people who come to Norwich for no qualifications and have left to work overseas now in the aviation industry, totally unrelated to the job they started with. So we aim to try and offer a version of that within our own organisation, that you can jump career paths, you can try something and then move to another. It's all about an attitude. And I think if you've got to want every day not to be the same. But I think that's essentially what it offers you.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that is something, if you're the kind of person who likes a steady, know what you're doing, 9 till 5 job, business aviation is not going to be for you. If you're someone who's looking for a career where literally the day you've described is quite possible from a very, very early start in your career, isn't it? You can be doing very exciting things very rapidly when you join, for example, a company like yours that does charter, or you join a small business aviation airport. There's a lot that you can be involved in and hands-on very, very rapidly.
I think it's it's not really talked about because there aren't many large organisations. The industry gets lost, and one of the things our trade association BBJ does is aggregate that. So it is actually, if you combine all the small bits, it's actually quite large and quite influential. But the great thing to work within is you're only a couple of touch points away from senior management at every level. It's a small business. There's a group of you making a difference. And actually, I would take the one point you made, I wouldn't necessarily agree with. There are places for people that would just want a 9 to 5 job. If you work in, there are plenty of areas, the business administration support, the airworthiness. There are jobs where, and it's actually quite good. You've got both. You've got a steady job, and then you've also you've got stuff going on around you all the time as well. So it's just a good backdrop. So that's why it's got everything.
Fair point. Now, again, just going to your day to day, which team members are going to be involved with you with the delivery, or were involved with you with the showcasing the new aircraft to customers? Which members of your team would be there?
We've got our charter sales team. We've got our sustainability team with there. So what we're using the opportunity to explain our obligations of, so it's the fun stuff, it's the investment side, and it's also the social obligations that come with it, and the difficulties. So we were trying to be upfront but present solutions. We've obviously got our ground handling team who are coordinating it. We're also doing it with are a company we work really closely with who own the aircraft and we manage it. And it's basically used as a demonstrator to try and get other clients to get into buying aircraft, and then we operate it. So we brought their team up as well. So their sales and ops team have come up. So it's really a nice collaborative approach involving many different skills.
And there'll be people presumably who are going to have to position the aircraft and move it so that it's available for people to look at as well as the,
the
showcase team.
The position in the hangar. We've got catering suppliers, our in-house catering. We've got the visitor management, so just actually coming to the building and process them, and the VIP lounge experience. So yeah, there are 2 pilots involved and probably about 10 to 15 other people that have an interaction in it, which sort of sums it up.
And that again is one of the things I'd like. And where, if I was starting my career now and wanted to come along and work with you, where in that kind of project could I fit as a very, very junior member?
I think one of the things we're trying to do, we're doing basic managed enhanced work experiences where you get a taster to see what you like. One of the things we learned is it's much easier for people to do a good job if they like doing it. There are things we have to do, but try and do more of them that you like. So where your natural inclination is, and then looking at the upskilling that's required. So it'd be very much, we do it where you see all parts of the business. You will be recruited for a particular role, but if you go back into the careers pathways, is come and try it. A lot of people get into aviation thinking they want to be a pilot, like myself, actually don't want to be a pilot by the time they've experienced it. A lot of people do and love it, and then they're fully committed. So I think it's like so many careers, the more you can have a taste and experience, then you can work it out. But obviously we've then got to have a structure in terms of role definition, the characteristics you need in that role, matching that against the applicants. So I think the first step is just try before you buy.
And I think too, going back to a point that you made earlier, now we're having this conversation, people will see this. What people might not realize is you are the big boss in your operation, and you will be working directly with someone who's coming in at a fairly junior level, at the very entry level, won't you? That people will have access to have a conversation with you. You'll be observing where they're going, and mindful of their career, which that is unlikely to be a possibility for a lot of people in a large global corporate, for example.
Absolutely, yeah. You have, and it depends on the culture of the company. But if it's one big collaboration. We have a circular reporting structure. I'm accountable to individuals and teams. We have corporate accountabilities, which are a pyramid structure where somebody has to, the responsibility finishes somewhere, but everyone involved has a responsibility, and I have an obligation to them to make sure that they are empowered for what they need to do. So not every organization will do the same thing, but in a small business, it's essential that it's as direct and honest as possible, because the environment we work in, I think that's the other element, is basically most of our businesses are pretty entrepreneurial. You can't stand still. That's another dynamic. A lot of people, you may want a steady job, but these businesses, we work in incredibly pressurized environments, and you have to be on it, in which case you have to go forward. So that kind of embedded dynamic risk is also part of it.
And another key role in aviation, and perhaps in your organization, in any, is we've touched upon customer service, we've touched upon sales, we've touched upon operations, ground handling. All of these are things that are kind of maneuvering the aircraft, or helping to get the aircraft airborne and with people. What about maintenance and engineering? I heard of a young person recently who thought that you had to be so super clever to be an engineer that it was beyond how he imagined he would be able to be. Can you tell me a little bit about how you would recruit, or training that's available for someone who was interested in the tech?
Yeah, it was interesting. Well, I'm not an engineer; they're cleverer than me, that's for sure. But it's a different skill set. I think the engineering pathway. So we only do airworthiness management. We do not do direct engineering. So we plan it and then we allocate it effectively with approved organisations. So that's where the actual engineering is. However, when you do an aviation engineering qualification, the planning is part of it, and some people are more interested in that planning and oversight than the actual spanner work. I think we do work really closely with there's the Aviation Academy in Norwich, which has a very strong engineering degree pathway, and that is just layered up. But we're working with some partnership with them in terms of, if you break it down, the basic engineering skills are, they are generic. You can get into them. You don't have to have straight nines at GCSE sciences. I've got my son's couple of friends. Actually left high school and they were a bit lost. They didn't know what to do. They actually joined the program. They did nothing. They weren't strong scientific. They actually haven't gone on to an engineering qualification. But they completed it, the FE stage of it, which was interesting because it wasn't something they planned to do. So it's difficult, but most things require that hard work is required sometimes to realize your potential. But I wouldn't say it's prohibitive at all. And it's the pathways. Is do the thing in front of you to prepare for the one after it, rather than get to the end straight away.
That is so important, and that's really what we're aiming to kickstart with this series, with the videos we're doing, is to show people, here's what you can do to get into the industry. Here are some different diverse careers that are possible within the industry. And speaking to people such as yourself, Alex, who are doing incredibly well in the industry, who didn't actually ever intend to do what you're doing now. And you've told us about a very exciting day that's happening. How about international travel? Do you do much of that?
I do a lot less than I used to. I should probably do more. I think we are very, it depends on the phase of business you're at. Coming out of COVID, I think the business has been, across the board, have been really stretched. So we are, just managing the business. So, forget aviation. It is an organization that needs to run, best practice and all that stuff. I think what I always liked about it is an international industry. Before I was at Saxon Air, I worked internationally a lot. And it's one of the fantastic things about it. You can end up anywhere. There are shows all over the world. They're melting pots, and generally, it's just so cosmopolitan. But I think there's a lot of there are inclusivity issues within aviation, but actually on a broader level, I think because it is such an international community, a lot of the time you don't think about it. You bump into people from all over the world, and that's one of the amazing things for people who at the local high school, and we have, at some levels of our jobs, we have no barrier to entry academically. So you can be lost having finished your GCSEs, and then 3, 4, 5 years later, you can be at a show in the States. You can be working regularly with internationals. We broker a lot of international flights. So yeah, it's and I think it's really important. I think that connectivity is what this is all about. So yeah, I probably should make more of an effort.
Well, it's more just explaining to people. It's an industry that's enabled me to travel many places all over the world that I would never have visited without this as a vehicle, even though I'm not a pilot or a flight crew. So tell me about one of the most inspirational people I've met in the industry, who is a young man who works for you and who started originally as a baggage handler at Norwich International Airport. Can you walk me through his story a little?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So he's on the back. We backed apprenticeships quite a long time ago because a lot of the job is on the job training. Now, what we're trying to develop is skills to accompany that, but it's an accumulation of knowledge. So he came as an apprentice. He actually didn't want the apprenticeship, but that was our policy. It's worked before. So, and he, by his own admission recently, he said, he wasn't quite lost with where he was, but he wasn't sure what he wanted to do. So he was interested in this. And it's not the most fascinating job. It was an entry to it. And what he's done is he's just He's just a very likable, straightforward person, not a big ego, not a drive, but just through a work ethic, a flexibility, and I can do that. And what does it need to do this? Work through the handling part of the operation. When got into operations, touched on a bit of marketing. Is now in our rotary ops, and is now our post holder at a pretty young age for a reasonably serious helicopter operation. To the extent where he collected the award we won recently at the Charter Association. So it was so right for him to be there. What I liked is it wasn't planned. He didn't expect it. We didn't expect it to win it. But for him to sit on stage, thought that just is right. But there is no end. It's keep going. So what new responsibilities do you need? And it's just that really straightforward. I think one of the biggest things is if you can leave your ego out of the room, you can do really well. If that makes sense. It's do the thing in front of you to contribute to the team, and it works.
And I think that's another point that we aim to stress with this. A lot of business aviation companies will certainly, I think what you're saying is you'll hire for attitude.
Absolutely.
And then mold people for skills and ability. And in my experience, most people have more skills than they actually realize. So long as they've got the attitude to develop those, then the paths are limitless, really.
That's right. I think we found the apprenticeships every single time. We found amazing, people have been far more than they thought, and it allows that opportunity to develop.
So Alex, I know a lot of young people are very concerned about the environment and sustainability, and I think there's a little bit of a misconception about business aviation. Do you tell us what people could expect coming into your organisation, how you are combating climate change and tackling sustainability, being more sustainable?
Sure. We start with an honesty. So we have a problem. But we're not the only ones. But we're not. You need to face your own responsibility. So about 3 years ago, we decided just to scope it out, face it. And one of the questions we asked ourselves was, should we carry on or should we stop? Is it so bad? We thought by doing that, so we saw the extent of it, where our problems were. Thought actually we're a problem-solving industry. Why we could probably do better by using the resources we have and capability to set ourselves in a direction to resolve those problems. So, and it's really transformed the way we do our business, because we've found some amazing, exciting things. It's more and more become at the heart of our business. It's in no way to pretend that we're okay. Our jets are high emitters, but then our organisation is, any organisation is, and we're very much drilling down to every detail of what you do. So while it may be, so we waited carefully till we found the right offsetting program, because we do not want a box tick. We want something that does as close as much as it can to actually retire the carbon, but actually to showcase it as well. So one of the partners is, where would you like your trees planted? And then the Prince's Trust can plant them. So it's a visualization of what we're doing, but it's just taking apart every part of our organisation. And some of it is nothing to do with the aircraft. It's, our air conditioning was at the time, about, I think it's something like 15% of our emissions. I didn't know that till we looked at it. And then you go, we run a building where we have tenants. So the influential side, where we've changed we've reduced our car parking spaces, got to agile working, just the things other businesses do. But then our tenants have in turn. So we have partnerships with the local park and ride service, we have cycle to work. We're doing the things that every organisation should do. And then back to the headline points of, and it's absolutely the crux of the business, is it gets a lot of bad press at the moment, understandably, but I think disproportionately. Aviation is always innovated. It is on track. It is no way trying to pretend it's not doing everything it can, and it is doing a huge amount. And I think the evolution of aviation, we're at the start of a new revolution. This is the third age of aviation. There are totally new propulsion systems in development. They're coming. We've already got sustainable aviation fuel, which is significantly reducing the footprint. But we keep going. It's not enough. Offsetting isn't enough. To the extent we're now embedding ourselves in electric aircraft operations, which was, if the future is coming, they are here. The infrastructure isn't here to do that. So it's really, what can you do in 22, sort of being the motto. A lot of stuff about 5, 10, 15 years time. No, what can you do right now, everywhere? And the last thing I'd say on it is, once you put net zero in front of aviation, the smiles come back on people's faces, and people want to do it, but it's stopping them. So we have to be honest about it. And to the point, there are things we have a true net zero target by 2030. There are aircraft we're operating now that we cannot operate then unless if there is a total emissions free fuel. We are going to have to change our business. But we don't want, if we closed, we put a lot of people out of work. It would cause a lot of harm. Then there's people that can't be influenced to change either.
And this is the great thing, and why we want great young minds to join the community, and great minds from all over the place, to make these very important changes. Everyone I speak to is committed to being net zero by 2030. It's not paying lip service. Is there anything that you would like to get across, Alex, that we haven't touched on in our discussion?
Not only really that I think it's just, I think the thing about the aviation environment is it's exciting. People say life's short. Well, I mean, you have some very stressful days, so there is a downside to it, but it's incredibly satisfying. We make a difference to how people live their lives in a positive way, usually. So to be able to do that and be able to shape, and if you want to sort of control and influence your own career and future, I think there's very few industries to beat it. Every time, occasionally, I think really I should go and find something more constructive to do. You just stay in it, because it's not one stale career path. I've been in this business in Norwich for 10 years. I feel more alive and excited because of the new businesses we're creating, that constant evolution. And I don't think there's many environments like it.
No, it's very, very flexible, innovative, and generally I find great people such as yourself. Thank you, Alex. If anyone wants to get in touch with you and find out more if there is any openings or availability to come and visit Saxon Air, how would they do that?
We just relaunched our website, but it would be through the website, or contact me, or we have our own team are doing more and more outreach. So look through the website and we'll have contact information there.
Alex, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Not at all. Thank you.